Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Virtual Coffee Chat series. I have Shaina with me today, and I am actually very, very excited about this conversation that we're going to have today because it's one of the topics I love talking about, and it is content repurposing to optimize your performance for your marketing, for your content. And we're going to cover a lot of things that I think is going to be super useful for this audience. And looking forward to getting to know you more through this conversation too, Shaina. So could you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Where can we find you, what you do? And yeah, let's begin with that.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat about all the fun repurposing techniques and stuff that we've learned over the last few years too. I started Repurpose House a couple of years ago, and it came out of realizing that there was a need for a company to just create repurposed assets for content creators. Initially,
Yeah.
my background is video production and strategic marketing for video production. So I did a ton of that kind of stuff. And while I was doing like video podcast episodes for clients, I was creating these small little micro assets. And as I was trying to like market doing video podcasting, I kept hearing over and over and over again, we don't care about that, but what we would die for is just the assets, the little tiny micro
Yeah.
ones you're making, that are shaped properly with captions and all the bells and whistles. And I was like, there's no way that nobody's not doing this already. How is that even possible? And so after I
Yeah.
got a chance to kind of do some research, I realized that like there are a ton of companies you can go to kind of DIY. Like Headliner is a great tool. There's a lot of things, but it just takes
Yeah.
time. And
It
then
does.
it's painstaking, right? Like captions.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And then there's like the other end of it. So you're in like a full-fledged agency model where they're going to charge you a ton of
A
money.
lot.
And it's
Yeah.
probably one piece of like a larger strategy, which, there's benefit to that also.
Yeah.
But there wasn't anything that was like a productized service that was just consistently doing one thing. And so that's kind of why we got it all
I
off
love
and
that. I
running.
love that you are offering this service because I worked with marketing agencies in the past, and I did experience the example that you just gave, working with design agencies or design teams, and trying to create repurpose assets for the main assets that we were creating, or just smaller assets for different platforms of big campaigns that we had.
Yeah.
But it was very costly and it did take a lot of time. And I don't think that is really applicable or feasible for smaller businesses or solopreneurs, or, just like me in my case. Right now, I'm trying to repurpose my content. It is one of the things that I try to do on a daily basis too. But there's no way that I'm going to pay that much money for design agencies. But um, DIYing is not working for me either that much. Like it just really
Yeah.
takes a lot of time, and I know that it's going to be the same for a lot of other people too. It's a great service. It's really cool that you're offering it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So when did you actually see that opportunity? How many years ago, or was there like this clicking moment for you that that told you that you had to start this business?
Yeah, it's actually kind of a funny story. I started it as podcast memes. So
Hmm.
I had been, like I said, I was doing the video podcasting for my video production clients. And I was like, oh, well, a bunch of podcasters really need this, whether they have just audio only or they're doing video style interviews similar to
Yeah.
this. And so I had like this big booth. I went over to Podcast Movement in Philadelphia that year. And I was just like, let's just see, like if people are interested in it, it'll tell me that there's a market for this, and if they're not, then they'll let me know, right? And it was, people were super excited about it, so I was like, okay, great, at least there's interest. But then as like I brought on Sarah, and like she's my director of ops, she's a rock star. As I brought her on and we were really trying to push the service, like we were banging our heads against a wall because like there were two completely different like people that we were talking to, but we felt like it was one demographic. And it was like a no-brainer. They're like, you're not charging enough, you take our
Hmm.
money, just do what you do. Or it was the exact opposite. Like $100 a month was way too much for them in their budget. They didn't see
Hmm.
the value in it. There just wasn't like a middle ground. And we were trying to figure out what the common denominator on like the side that thought it was awesome was.
Hmm.
And we realized that they were digital marketers that were utilizing podcasting as one arm of their marketing strategy. And I was like, well, I've been working with marketers for years with video production. Like that makes perfect sense. So I changed the model to now be able to repurpose all things. So then it was just video and audio. And then I was like, well, blogs are massive. Like so many people
Exactly.
have so much written text that they can repurpose into video for
Yeah,
social media. Like, cause the link gets posted once and then what? It gets lost and that's it. And you're not even getting much engagement on a
exactly.
link on Facebook
Exactly.
anyway. So once we kind of changed what the model looked like, changed the audience, we completely rebranded. That's when it kicked into high gear. And that will be 2 years ago next month.
Oh, amazing. I think it's like the point about the blogs, I fully agree on that. In fact, like
Yeah.
just today, I published a video on my YouTube channel talking about the differences I experience with blog and video content. And like, it's not about repurposing. That video isn't about that, but still, I mentioned it like in the very towards the end of the video. I talk about repurposing the blogs into videos because
Yeah.
there is a different engagement on videos that should definitely be taken advantage of. And what I realize is, like, when I work with clients, I realize that they have hundreds of blog posts just sitting
Oh,
and
sitting
waiting
there.
in the bank,
It's like
basically.
a treasure chest of
Exactly,
content.
exactly. And I mean, some people are aware of repurposing and the need to repurpose, and that they're going to be able to optimize the performance through repurposing. But for some clients, they actually need the education on it. It's sometimes a very brand new concept to them, and you just have to take them through why that is important, and how to do that, and for which platforms to do that, and what's the strategy behind it. So
Right.
um, yeah, that is also an experience that I am going through. With that, I wanted to ask you, like, how have you also been through that experience, like when you come across the mindset that is kind of not getting repurposing, like how do you explain the importance of content repurposing for someone who is a total newbie to this concept?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different things. First of all, like my initial question is why would you spend time, resources, and in some cases money creating this content to then just let it die and that's it.
Yeah.
Like it's a one-time thing. And I think for so many people who aren't realizing the value of repurposing that content, that's just how they think it works. Like, okay, I create the content and then maybe it indexes on Google and
Yeah,
helps with my SEO and
and if I
that's
wait
it.
enough, maybe I will get some traffic.
Right. So it's like just thinking about all the energy you put into it. Like you don't have to put more energy into creating the content now. Now it's just using it to your benefit to then drive traffic
Yeah.
back to the content. One thing that I think a lot of people who are just learning how to engage on social are thinking is that, okay, I have to create all this different content for social media and I'm constantly chasing having to post stuff every single day.
Yeah.
And then like, what's the point? Like, okay, I can't deposit likes. So why am I even sending people or trying to get in touch with people on Instagram, Facebook, and the platforms? But if you're strategic about the content you already have, like if it's a blog post and like you have an opt-in on your site, something that pops up, you can gather their information, you have tracking pixels on your website. What you can do then is take little 100-word snippets and make those video assets for social and have your call to action be go read the rest of it here. So then
Yeah.
you're taking them off of the platform. You're now utilizing the data and their information if they're actually interested in what it is you're having to say at the full length capacity. And you can see now that like the thing that you were trying to do by posting it and hoping Google does its
Yeah.
thing, you can now actively help at a higher and faster velocity.
Exactly. And you can reach them wherever they are spending their time. That's another thing that I
Exactly.
say. Um, okay, so we kind of touched upon this piece, but I wanted to maybe elaborate a little bit on this again. Which content formats do you think is worth repurposing? Again, for people who are new to this concept,
Yeah.
who are not utilizing this in their content marketing strategy. You already mentioned that you started with podcasts to begin with, but then you moved on to different content formats. Also, another question tied to this: are you seeing more success with some types of content more than others?
Great questions. So one thing that I love talking to like new clients about is the gold mine that they're already probably sitting on that they don't realize,
Mm,
right? So it's like there's three key types of content. So like video, audio, and text. But then underneath each of those, there's things that a lot of people just don't think about. So video is interesting because it's the most obvious, because video gets shared more than like, it's like 1200% more than text and links combined. So
Wow.
like video is a great thing to repurpose. But when it comes to video, it's like, okay, you can have interview style videos like this. Anything interview style is great because you have the value of cross promotion there. So
Yeah.
the other person's going to share the content as well and get new fresh eyes on that content. But I mean, if you're a speaker and you do a lot of that, well, you know, if you got on stages before the chaos started and you have documentation of that, like I can guarantee you, you have a bunch of little 1 to 2 minute nuggets within that capacity that you can repurpose into
Yeah.
small pieces for social. We have one client who goes on his rooftop every morning and does like a 2 minute Facebook Live. And then he downloads it, re-uploads it to Google Drive, and it triggers like a million different zaps that then turn it into this repurposing like machine. It turns into like a mini blog post on his like blog. It turns into a LinkedIn article. It gets repurposed into all the proper formats, like
Yeah.
tall for stories. It goes on YouTube. Like, so that's just 1 to 2 minutes of his day. Webinars are a great thing you can repurpose, because I'm sure that you're trying to get people to engage with your webinars and sign up for them. If you give them little highlights that are super valuable, then the next thing they're going to think is, wow, if I got so much value out of this, why wouldn't I go and embark like on the entire experience?
Yeah.
Courses are a great thing to repurpose for the same reason. Give a snippet and they will see value in it. So video, there's so many things, testimonials, I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
As far as audio goes, if you can get creative, that's awesome. But, you know, generally speaking, it's podcasts or like audiobooks. But
Yeah.
text, I think, is the real one that people just don't realize that they can repurpose well for social. And that is things like blogs, white papers, written testimonials. I mean, like books, we have authors who use it and they'll take snippets of their book and turn them into like, they're like Goalcast style videos, animated text in and out and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
I actually follow a couple people that have been doing this so successfully on LinkedIn, and they're book writers. And even before they publish the book, they use those highlights, the very top key takeaways from their book, and
Yep.
they repurpose it into text formats or like shorter tips that people can use on a day-to-day basis, and just use it as LinkedIn posts, which I love. Like it's so useful. It gets you so excited about that book, and you already kind of build a buyer community even before you are there and ready with your book.
Yeah, it's funny because people will be like, well, we're not launching the book for another 3 months. I'm like, it's a
Yeah,
pre-launch strategy too. There's so many things that you can do
exactly.
to generate excitement. So yeah, the opportunities really, if you have content literally in any capacity, I can guarantee you there's a way to incorporate it into a repurposing strategy.
Exactly. Okay, so with that, I want to ask you, do you also help your clients with the distribution strategy as well, or are they kind of on their own when it comes to, kind of having the repurposed assets, and then are they on their own to publish it, or do you provide them the tips and strategies to do it better?
Yeah, so there we can be there as little or as much as really the
They
client
want, yeah,
needs us, right? So like we have the done with you option, which is like you go into our ticketing platform, you pick the little time code snippets, you let us know
yeah,
between 2 minutes and 13 seconds and 4 minutes, that's the clip to trim. You create your headlines, you just basically let us know what you want done, and then overnight we do it. But then for those people, we also have, we do client webinars consistently. So we're always educating. We have a ton of resources on our site and our blog. We've got like a Facebook group that we're always updating like new things that are going on in social algorithm changes, like best
yeah,
practices, stuff like that. So
yeah.
we
Those
like
are
to
so
be
helpful.
yeah, we just like to be ahead of educating, because like if you're utilizing them well and seeing engagement, then we're doing our job. We're helping you with your
Yeah.
social media repurposing. But we also go as far as we can go through your existing content, find the best clips, submit your tickets for you, do all of that fun stuff up front that nobody really wants to do, like go and listen
Yeah.
to all of your podcasts from the last 2 years.
Or take
All
a
the
look
way,
at all the very old blog posts that they
yes,
have even forgotten about.
exactly. And then we can go as far as we actually post on social platforms as well for clients,
Oh,
and that
that's
includes
amazing. That could be like a
includes.
full service from
So yeah, it
the
can be a
client.
full-fledged agency service, or it can be just a done with you kind of process. It just depends on the need.
That's awesome. Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to ask you was, and I was going to come to this later on, but now that we're kind of on that topic, I wanted to ask you about your opinion on repurposing old blog posts, because or updating the old blog post first and then repurposing repurposing them, because with a lot of clients that I worked with, especially in the tech industry, I realized that they have this blog strategy, right? So they've been creating blog posts on a regular basis because they've been told by marketers or the agencies that they work with that it's very important to have a regular schedule for blog posts. So they have this. However, most of the blog posts, these are not stable at all. Anyway, but for a lot of the blog posts that they've written in the past, there is no purpose. There's no clear call to action. There's a bunch of traffic maybe that's incoming, but they're not really doing anything with the traffic. And one of the things that I like to tackle with my clients first is to take a look at the high performing blog posts and repurposing, updating them. I wanted to ask you, like, do you think that should be one of the like the first bits of the strategy that they should implement before starting to repurpose into different assets?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you want to tell your audience what to do after they've consumed your content in general, right? So, like
Yeah.
you're saying, they land on the blog post that maybe has high traffic, but then what? Like,
What do you want them to do?
right, exactly. So ultimately, do that on your high traffic items if you don't already have that happening, and then now make it a habit to do that
Yeah.
consistently moving forward. But yeah, I mean, you have to think of it like, okay, if somebody came from Google and they landed on the blog post, there needs to be an intention there. You need to be offering additional resources and, gathering their information, right?
Yeah.
But if you take it a step in the opposite direction, like that's the end game. Like, what's the best
Yeah.
case scenario, right? And then that turns into, now they're in your email list, and then that turns into, them potentially buying and you nurturing them. But on the front end of it, like if it wasn't a Google search, it's essentially taking that stuff that's already optimized to work really well and do something for your business and extending it on the front end. So now you can give the snippets, give the highlights, and drive traffic from just other areas, as opposed to hoping that Google populates as much as it has. And it's great because the first things you should be starting to repurpose for social are the high performance pieces, because you're going to start to see even more action on that. Like, start there, and then you can either start diving into new content or, the other existing pieces. Because if you see a boost in ones that get good engagement, I'm sure you'll see a boost across the board.
Exactly. And you'll be more motivated to work with the other ones as well.
Right.
Cool. Okay, so is there a magic number of assets that a business should create when they're repurposing their content?
So we've kind of nailed down how many assets that we provide every time somebody makes a request. So in that sense, like so let's say, for instance, let's use like an interview like this. There was a 2-minute snippet of something that somebody said that we want to repurpose into an asset. So we'll take that 2-minute clip and we'll do it 3 different sizes. So we'll do landscape, because that individual snippet is going to live by itself on YouTube. We're not going to put captions on it though, because we're going to upload the caption file so that all of those words are searchable through YouTube and through Google. Then we're going to do the square variation, because on a lot of feeds, the square performs really well. We're actually just finding recently that vertical performs best on Facebook. But square kind of across the board is where anything you scroll with your thumb, you're going to want that to live. And then we do the vertical one as well, because now you can optimize that for stories, for IGTV, for Facebook feeds now, and other places. So those are kind of the 3 sizes that we want to make sure each clip is in. Then also there are tips within that to make sure that it gets the most engagement. But then we also will take like a quote within that small snippet and do like an image quote as well. So an image
I feel
of the
those
guest.
really work well as well on Instagram specifically.
Yeah, they do. They work great, especially if you have an image of a human being on it. Like they crazy perform if you have a person. So we're kind of like, if we're already in there repurposing a video, let's give an image as well. That doesn't take a whole lot of extra additional effort. So we'll do that in the same 3 sizes, because if you're going to schedule it like on Twitter, well, and Twitter optimizes for landscape, but if you're going to schedule it like on LinkedIn, they only post horizontal posts on schedulers. It's the weird thing. So we'll do square, landscape, and vertical for those. The same thing, but just different sizes. And then we also do thumbnails to support each of them, so like a YouTube thumbnail, an IGTV thumbnail, and a square thumbnail. So for us, that's kind of turned into our magic number per clip. But what's cool is it's like, if you have 5 awesome statements or awesome 1 to 2 minute clips that were stated, then now you have that times 5. It can be dozens and dozens and dozens of assets out of one piece of content. So
isn't it crazy?
It's incredible. Like, people don't realize how much they're sitting on, just even with a handful of long form content pieces, but like it can explode very quickly if you just start to like kind of dig a little bit into your existing stuff.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, good thing that you said long form content, because I think well, a couple years back, like before the algorithm started to change, and before, some industry thought leaders, I'm going to say, or industry experts started to make the discussions or bring up the discussions that nowadays you shouldn't gate your content, but you should actually open up the content. And because otherwise, if you gate it, it's not really searchable, it's not really indexed by Google and whatnot. And now that there's a trend to ungate the content, the long form content, and kind of evolve into or transition into making pillar pages with the long form content, I feel there is even more opportunity, because now businesses are opening up that gated information.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just so much more snippets that you can take from all the long form content that were created in the past. And people were actually paying a lot of money to create those long form contents and spending a lot of money on it, spending a lot of time on it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do believe that giving as much information that you can without completely giving away the farm it's a great strategy, because it makes you a leader in your industry. You know what you're talking about. They trust you before they even purchase.
Yeah.
But there is something to say for gated content in addition to that too. Actually, we did a really cool case study with one of our clients. It was over a 90-day period. And
Mm-hmm.
I was hesitant because the content they were repurposing was gated. And I was like, the numbers are going to be wonky because it wasn't just like a piece, but they got incredible results. Like they increased their opt-ins by 300% just by 1 2-minute clip every week that they repurposed. That's it. Like across all the social channels. So like you can still repurpose gated content because the stats don't lie. They tracked it all through HubSpot. But I mean, if you have the open pieces as well, like it's just you can utilize it in all different types of strategies for sure and see effectiveness.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so another thing that I want to ask you, when you're working with multiple clients, and this is, I'm really curious about this, how do you avoid having the same style for different clients? Because nowadays, and the next question that I want to ask you is like, what are some examples that you see are doing this very successfully on social media? I have a couple of favorites that I follow on LinkedIn that are doing an amazing job with repurposing. But I feel that, I mean, whoever they work with, obviously, I have no idea. Maybe they're doing it on their own, or maybe they're just replicating the style from each other. But what I wanted to know is like, how do you avoid kind of having the same style for different clients? And do you have like unique designs for others, or is it just enough to use their own branding? And does it kind of help to differentiate the assets if you do that?
Yeah, great. That's a great question. We get asked that a lot. So we have a full-fledged design process right when we have clients signed up. So what happens is like we take them through this form where they upload brand assets and all of that. But we have like 50 plus examples of video, we call them video memes, that we've created in the past for other clients, where they can say, here's my top 3. This is what I like about each one. This is what I don't like about each one. Also, here's some examples that we've seen online. Like everything's custom created. So there's pieces of the puzzle that kind of have to stay intact. Like headlines are very important. Captions are very important. You get options whether or not you want like the moving progress bar and things like that. But ultimately, like those are the only 3 things that are always the same. And that's pretty much it. So we have worked in the past, like if there are a bit larger businesses that have like a graphic design team or a marketing or brand team, like we work heavily with them to make sure that everything is exactly what they need it to be. It's up to brand standards. We've got their brand packaging. We know how that works, all the way to like a personal brand that's like a solopreneur and they just need assistance on like, what will make this look cool? These are my colors and here's my logo, so it's really neat because we're able to either take inspiration from online or take inspiration from what we've already created, but every single template ends up being completely unique to each of our clients. We do have like a lower tiered service where it's a generic template and they just let us know to swap colors, but that's for like the ones who really want to see really cool, unique templating. Like it's all based on templates. So we'll do 3 templates and then they can have as many as they want. But it's cool too, because with agencies, like they can have as many templates as they want for clients. So we have a lot of white label scenarios where they're like, okay, we got 30 templates because we've got 15 clients and each of them have 2 different unique ones. And you know, you just go through the design process. It's fun to see some of the stuff that
Yeah,
comes out of our
it
design team.
is. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So with that said, do you have any like or do you follow any thought leaders or industry experts or businesses that are doing an amazing job at this?
Oh yeah, well,
Or very good case studies that you've worked on?
yeah, well, first of all, Gary Vee's like the guy. So we all
Yeah.
know Gary
He's the
Vaynerchuk's doing it.
master of it.
Seriously, every time he says we have to like to do something different in your purposing strategy, our entire business model has to change. So it's like that's a real powerful dude over there. But I mean, we kind of take a lot from what he's doing because we know he's testing everything. And
Yeah.
if he's doing something, there's a reason. So we'll usually, you know, hop on, find out what's going on, why he's testing it, and test it ourselves. With him, it's a lot of simplicity and templates and things like that. So
Yeah.
but there's something to be said for brands who are very visual. So there's some, you know, you can do that as well. We had one that was doing like a Nintendo kind of theme, like old school
Mm.
Nintendo
Hmm.
one theme. That was really cool. That was Eric's stuff. But like they're all digital marketer does some really amazing things. Like we work with digital marketer and they've got different templates across the board because they have so much content. Like they do their blog. They also have 2 podcasts that they're doing and each of them speak to different audiences and have different branding and stuff. So it's like you'll see their feed constantly come up and 90% of the stuff on their social feeds is all repurpose and it all has intention and it's all driving you
Yeah.
somewhere to go and take action to do something. So um yeah, they do a killer job at it, as they should. They're called digital marketers. So,
Yeah. I know.
yeah,
They're kind of leading it.
yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. One more thing I wanted to ask you,
yeah,
and this actually came from the community because I asked them like if they have any questions.
cool.
What is your opinion on supporting these repurposed assets with paid advertising?
Okay, so it is a really good question. I'm glad that they asked that. So the case study that I told you about with the client who had the gated content, they did completely unpaid. It was all organic. It
Mm-hmm.
was all tracked through HubSpot, and they saw crazy, amazing results. It was just like they had like
Yeah.
138% increase in site visits just off the top, and they're like content powerhouses. So another good example on how like one of our clients or even anybody does great repurposing they're in the event industry, so they're not even in marketing. They're awesome. They're called Endless Events,
Yeah.
and go check them out. They are crazy with their content. But there's also something to be said with putting some budget behind your
Yeah.
repurposed assets. You know, if put budget behind it if you have a very specific like journey that you want them to go on. Like you want them to see this piece of
Mm-hmm.
content and then maybe retarget them with another piece of content that's in the similar wheelhouse or another piece of content, another repurposed asset from the same piece of content if they haven't actually clicked through to see the whole thing. There's like
Mm-hmm.
all of this cool strategy that you can do behind like I don't know how vast or like small the knowledge is on how to use like Facebook ads, but like you can literally say, okay, if this person watched this video for 10 seconds, now they're going to see this next video. And you can have a sequence of like 3 to 5 of these things before you even try to put something in front of them that is asking for anything, right? You want to give a
Mm-hmm.
ton of value. But you can also boost a lot of these posts and throw a couple bucks behind it and get
Yeah.
a ton more views than you're going to get if you just put it up organically. You know,
Yeah.
with the strategy with that organic case study was they were posting in a lot of groups and they
Mm.
have a very large audience. And what's tough about if you're just getting started is if you don't have a big audience to begin with, you're going to have very minimal eyeballs on it because Facebook's pay to
True.
play. So if you're going to do it on Facebook, you are getting next to 0 views if you're posting on a business profile.
Yeah.
But doing it on somewhere like LinkedIn and just using some cool strategy where you're like actually engaging on other people's stuff so that LinkedIn likes it and
Yeah.
pushes more views to you.
Yeah. LinkedIn
Um,
is a different platform in that case, I think so too.
totally different beast. Yeah, it's just you have to decide where your audience is. But if you're going to dedicate some resources to Facebook, I would absolutely consider even putting a couple bucks behind some of your posts and seeing
Yeah.
what changes in that because it'll be bigger changes than just organic. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. It's definitely worth experimenting with that for sure.
For sure. Yeah. And
Amazing.
a couple bucks here and there, not too bad. And if you start to see results, then you can gauge what your ROI looks like on that and create a strategy based on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Okay, I learned so much.
Oh, yay, good.
This was absolutely very, very helpful for me, and I'm sure it's going to be helpful on the audience as well.
I hope so.
So if they want to learn more about you and what you do and your business, where can they find you? I will put all the links in the comments below,
Perfect.
but just if you want to share anything else, would be great.
Yeah, so repurposhouse.com literally has the gauntlet. I mean, we do a ton of education. So there's going to be a resources tab, and it's everything from our blog to video series. We actually are launching a new series called Content Karate, where we're talking to a bunch of people on how
Cool.
all of our clients on how they repurpose and what their strategies look like. We have courses, things like that. So, I mean, you can literally just dive into that site and learn so much and see kind of what we're doing and how you can implement a lot of the stuff into your own strategy, even in a DIY kind of capacity. So, that for me is kind of the best place to start sending people if they want to learn more.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing all your knowledge, all your experience. It was really truly helpful.
Yeah, you got it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and nice to meet you.
You too. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks so much. Have a great day
You
and
too.
rest of your week.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye.